We alluded to the fact that Canada, let's say, is woefully unprepared now on the classic military front, also with regard to all the new forms of warfare that are multiplying faster than people can even imagine, that we have a widespread problem of demoralization and that recruitment is not working. Okay, so, but I didn't get the sense that we did a sufficiently good job of telling Canadians that, you know, there's smoke and fire. It's like that this is a real problem. And so, like, what do you feel are the consequences, even the short-term consequences, let's say, of Canada continuing to be unprepared in this manner?
So this goes to Mike's intervention early in the conversation about this notion of a perfect storm. So at the very moment in time, that this period in time when we have the dimensions of the crisis that you've just summarized, we are incapable, therefore, of participating, contributing, and doing our fair share, for lack of a better characterization, in a global system that needs us.
Right. So we look incompetent, just at minimum.
So at a minimum, we look incompetent or disinterested.
Yeah.
Pick one.
Yeah.
Neither of them is a particularly good look for
both.
A G7 country.
Yeah, right.
Right? Then we have the actual practical challenges around the security issues. We look at our ability to contribute or not to the alliance. Are we doing enough? We never are doing enough.
Yeah.
We're doing what we can, but that is insufficient. And so the implication from a Canadian perspective is that Canada, that depends as much, if not more than many other countries in the world on these global systems for our way of life, is unable to make any meaningful contribution to the preservation, reinforcement, and ultimately protection of all of these systems.
Right.
And so, but that's a hard sell, and I get why it's a hard sell, which is why, and this is a very personal plea, I do not believe, notwithstanding the need for Canadians to understand this, that this should be an interest of, or this should be an issue of public interest or public opinion. And I have told political leaders who will listen to me that if you are following public opinion on these issues, you are not leading. And this is an issue of
my suspicion
leadership.
too is that if the public was informed, as we're attempting to do now, that the discovery would be that far more Canadians, especially of the conservative and classic liberal bent, would be behind intelligent policy related to the military.
I can only, 100% support what Mark's saying. If a government wants to govern for Canada, for all Canadians, and this is the right thing to do, to have armed forces that can protect Canadians, but also intervene in internationally wherever we want. You need to be able to spend the money. Some social programs are going to have to be lessened, in terms of how much we spend on them, but it's always, guns, butter. You can have both. And right now we don't have enough guns, frankly. That's where we are today.
Or people holding guns.
Or
people
butter.
holding guns. Yeah.
Or butter.
Or butter.
Or butter, yeah. But the point is, and I agree with you 100% as well, that if a government decided that, then it's a matter of going out and telling Canadians. It has to start at the top, though. Again, I say, the Prime Minister, of our country, doesn't matter what persuasion he is, doesn't even talk about it. When he talks about the defense policy update, it's going to be good, it's going to get closer to 2%. No one cares about that. For the moment, we need somebody who cares about service to our country, who's going to make service an honorable thing for people to do, who's going to fund the military, who's going to improve morale and so on. And I think if you explain it to Canadians, they will understand.
Yeah, I think so.
And we need the leaders themselves. The ones in uniform are going to have to buck up a little bit. Can I say that? I was going to say something else, but I'll say grow up there, but I'm not going to say that.
But fair enough. Okay,
yeah,
so why? All right.
Yes.
Now, we talked at the beginning a little bit about the fact that, look, I know that the military personnel, the leadership in particular, are fundamentally supposed to shut the hell up about political matters. And they are in a very strict chain of command. And by and large, they should stay there. But you three, who should know, have indicated that we have something on our hands in the order of a crisis. And I don't imagine you're like Chicken Little, sky is falling sort of people. And so at some point it becomes incumbent on people who are attempting to serve the country to bring such things to the attention of Canadians. And so why is that not happening as much as it might in your...
Well, I think that, again, I not political, but I think that our military, like I watch on television in the last few years where there's an announcement about the military and Wayne Eyre's not even there. Our chief of defense staff is not, it's Anita Nan that's making the announcement. The minister's making the announcement beside the prime minister. What the hell? Like, you look at the Americans and there's the Joint Chiefs, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs, he's there beside him.
So what do you think that indicates?
So I think that, I don't know, maybe the generals are going to need to say, okay, no, this is still my ship, my armed forces, and I need to have more of a say. And I don't know, I think the next government, that's going to be more likely because this government just seemed to find the idea of a uniform somehow unsavory and hid it away. I mean, when was the last time that we had...
the uniform, I might say.
But when was the last time you saw a Rick Hillier, for example, up there calling them scumbags and whatever else, and him saying, yeah, well, you can talk to the... and people listening, Canadians were enamored of that. And you need a hero. Everybody loves a hero. And we're not producing enough. We're not showing, we have heroes, but we're not showing them enough.
Well, then on that front too, like you talked about three gentlemen whose careers were demolished, the three senior officers.
Art McDonald, Danny Fortin, and Steve Whalen.
Right, in the name of culture change. And so my suspicions are that sort of action is also quite likely to dissuade people from having something to say.
I'm not sure about that.
Okay,
I mean, we have an example, and I'll talk about, Vice Admiral Octorloni and Vice Admiral Topshee, two senior, 3-star admirals. Topshee commands the Navy currently. And he made a video about a year ago, maybe 9 months ago, where he talked about the challenges of the Navy. Now, as a leader, that's what you want to do. You want to inform your troops. You want to make sure you communicate with them that, okay, things are tough, boys and girls, but, there's stuff coming down the pipe. And, he did what a good leader would do. I'm sure the government was very unhappy with him releasing that video. If you haven't seen it, you need to see it. The other guy is Octorloni. So
what's the video?
The video is the Royal Canadian Navy commander makes a video about the state of the Navy today. And it's,
how long is that video?
Oh, I think
6 minutes, maybe.
6 minutes.
Yeah, but it's excellent. It's
okay, will
really
you send me the link to that? Because maybe we'll put it on this show.
Sure, I can.
If that would be useful.
Sure, I can do it.
Okay.
The other guy is Bob Octorloni. So he commands the Canadian Joint Operations Command. He commands all the military operations outside and inside the country. He's kind of the Mr. Operator. He does that on behalf of the Chief of Defense Staff. So he was in an interview, I don't know with whom, but he talked about, the world today. And he talked about, because he's the guy who gets all the intelligence, and he talked about the dangers, the threats to our country, and so on and so forth. And he was very open, and he said, Canadians don't realize how dangerous the world is today.
And that was another video, or
that is a video. It's an interview.
Mainstream media interview.
Yeah,
in one of the papers, I believe.
Okay,
yeah.
But the notion being that there are little pockets
of people who are speaking
out. And I was always told, I don't know if it's the same with you, but when the media would come around and they would say, can we talk to your soldiers? The soldiers knew they could talk about what they were doing, exactly what you couldn't talk about, I hate the policy of the government on this. And frankly, when I look at what Topshee did and I look at what Octorloni did, they talked about their job. They talked, my job is the operator, and my job is to know what's going on in the world. And I don't think people understand that this is going on. The other guy, Topshee, he said, well, what's going on in my command? Oh, I'm telling you, troops. And I'm sure he did it for his sailors.
He did. It was
and it was a really good.
So your point is that there is a way for military leaders to speak out.
There is.
To inform the population and their own men and women about what's going on without stepping outside of the chain of command.
Right.
Without becoming politically disloyal.
They can be loyalty is the key here.
Right.
However, the government sometimes says no.
You're
not allowed.
Well, the government can also be pushed back when they're out of their bailiwick. So, but your sense is that there is a place there where public pronouncements are appropriate and possible, and that you've seen some of them.
Yeah, I have.
Yeah. Okay.